What's going on, nerds? Welcome back to Comic Book Nerd Nation, episode 57. I'm Fox2. We got the whole crew here today. I got Pirate,
How's it going, peoples?
Topher,
If I randomly cheer in the middle of this podcast, it's not because I actually like anything these yahoos are saying. It's because I'm watching the Packers-Lions game in the background.
and that's a totally dedicated person there, and the whole effing Brian.
If I randomly clap my hands and cheer during this podcast, it's probably because I shit my pants.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So let's jump in and talk about what we've been reading. I personally have not had a chance to read anything at all, as this was a holiday week, and I was also sick for most of the week. I've read nothing, which is super exciting. So I'll pass the buck on over to Pirate.
I started to read the second volume of American Vampire.
It's fucking awesome.
and It is. It is. I haven't finished it. It's just kind of like the first appearance of what was his name from the first one? Sterling or Silver? Sterling or Silver or
Candy? Was
no? Was it no? Was it Candy? Yeah. I
Oh,
think his
Skinner,
name is-
Skinner, Skinner.
Skinner. That's it. Yeah, he's like a gangster in this one.
Yeah.
Like starts off it's pretty good. I really dig the series. The first volume was fucking epic. Which the second volume, the start of it and the feel of it it's the same feel, but it's just that character, the way he kind of morphs into this gangster, and he's supposedly killed that cop's, was it brother or dad or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's brother or something.
Yeah, it was just like, wait a minute, this is not even the same. Doesn't even feel like the same character from the first one.
Who makes that series?
It's
Scott Snyder.
Scott Snyder writes it.
Scott
Yeah.
Snyder writes it, but
Oh, yeah, that
Oh.
one.
Raphael Albuquerque does the art.
who was it who published it? It wasn't.
It's not. It's Vertigo. Actually, I have them sitting on my lap right now because I got 3, 4, 5, and 6 for Christmas to read.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, I just got I didn't know they released the sixth one. I just have the first 5.
I think 7 is coming out soon.
Okay. Wow. Shit. So I got a lot more reading to do. But yeah, they're really good good reads. I was digging it. The first one was epic, and I read it a while ago. Then I got the second one and the third, fourth, and fifth one, and I just started the second one. But it's been a while since I've read the first one. But yeah, it was pretty good, pretty interesting. Very very dark. It's I don't know. It's just really weird takes. How's it go? Like the first one starts off in like the 1920s in Hollywood, and
Yeah.
then it kind of rolls into like the second one is in I think the 30s, maybe like late 30s, early 40s, something like that.
Early 40s because at the end, did you finish it?
No, I haven't finished it. I started about like a quarter into it.
It's around there because at the end, the boyfriend goes to Europe to fight.
Oh, okay.
So it's either Second World War or First. I'm not sure.
It would have to be the second, yeah, because it's like gangsters and like they got like zoot suits and pinstripes and shit. So I mean, it's probably like late 30s, early 40s. So if he's going off to World War by the second one, it's probably 1941, 1940 is when it takes place. But yeah, it's definitely really good, well put together book.
That actually reminds me, Brian mentioned in Christmas. I didn't get to read anything, but my girlfriend got me a DVD for Christmas. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's called Necessary Evil.
I also had that.
It was put out by DC Comics, and it's like a documentary style commentary from a bunch of actors and writers and artists about the villains of the DC universe and how, in many cases, they're more interesting than the superheroes. It's a really awesome DVD.
Have you watched it yet?
Yeah, I haven't seen
Yeah.
the entire thing. I've watched like maybe 80% of it.
As you just said, it is an awesome DVD.
It
It's
is
very
sweet.
it's interesting to watch these writers talk about the villains and their comparisons to their their hero and stuff like that. It's probably one of my favorite documentaries.
Yeah, listening to these guys like Scott Snyder and Jeff Johns talk about these characters like Sinestro and Parallax and the Joker and the Riddler and all these different villains. I mean, it literally, like, the way that they describe the characters, I mean, it will literally send chills down your spine. Like, it's just the emotion with which they talk about it, and you can just tell how much passion they have in the writing for not just the superhero, but also the supervillain side of the story. And in many cases, they paint the picture that it's really more important what the supervillain is doing versus what the superhero, because the superhero is always going to win. That's a given. So really, the interesting part of the story is how do you get to that the superhero overcoming? How monumental is the task going to be? It's, man, if you guys haven't seen it, it is definitely worth going out on Amazon or maybe Best Buy might have it. It's called Necessary Evil. Yeah.
I don't think I've
Sounds cool.
It is bad. It's badass. Yeah, that's probably it's probably my second favorite gift I got this year. Next to, she also got me the Art Effects Kobu. I can't pronounce it.
I call them. Me and some of my friends call them Kobayashi.
Kobayashi.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
It's like Kodo.
It's Kotobukiya,
Kotobukiya.
but I don't know where the stresses are. I don't know if it's like Kotobukiya or if it's Kotobukiya or I don't know.
Kotobukiya.
Is it like?
Damn, easier to blow out our fucking eardrums, Brian.
Sorry, I got excited.
Something. What was
Okay,
the
you're just talking
term?
completely
Like
over Pirate.
Detective Kabukimon or something?
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. But anyway, she got me the Hulk statue for Christmas also, which is
That one's pretty sick.
super badass. Yeah. Brian got the Thor for Christmas also.
And I have the Captain America too.
Yeah.
Those statues, they're pretty cool. I heard
and they're
that
relatively like reasonable. They're
cheap,
like reasonably priced compared to some of the other, like all the other Hulk statues that I've seen that are that quality level are all like $300.
They do a series of Bishojo statues, which is like a Japanese kind of like pretty girl anime style of like several heroine superheroes, like female superheroes that are all pretty cool. We got a few of those.
I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Yeah, they're also.
I'm thinking his nightstand next to his bed. He's got all these like lined up.
No, they're actually in my girlfriend's office at work because I bought them for her.
Maybe you should have prefaced that story with that rather than saying I've got a couple of them. Just saying.
They're coming out with a Deadpool in March, and I think they posted on Facebook that they're gonna do just like the Deadpool.
There's a Thanos coming out too. Just
like the Deadpool ones, they're gonna make a X-Men line.
I did pick this up the other day, an old '90s X-Force Deadpool action figure.
Oh,
nice. He has no.
He's the mask is separate. It's over here.
I wish I could see this face with his skin without the glare.
that's back when you could sell toys that were choking hazards to children.
Yes.
Is he wearing mascara?
I can't tell.
Yeah, there's his. Wait, no.
Looks like he's
helmet.
Looks like he's painted up like he's a fucking member of the Kiss band.
It's a '90s action figure. Like the work is not exactly stellar. Clearly. I don't think they put hundreds of dollars into the production process.
All right, everybody, buckle yourselves in. Sit back, relax, get your favorite beverage because it's time for Topher to tell us what he's been reading.
Just because my segment's more interesting than yours doesn't mean you have to make fun.
6 times longer.
Raymond wants to hear. Raymond's ready for this.
I feel like he should have an entrance music whenever he tells us what he's been reading.
Maybe we can work on that. Some kind of like
it's
epic
like
battle
between
music,
the Fresh Prince and X-Men. Like this is a story all about how the X-Men's lives got turned upside down.
Oh shit! Okay, we're gonna
I'm
record
just saying.
that. We're gonna put something together, Brian. I'll get with you. We're gonna put a little fucking Fresh Prince X-Men intro theme for Topher's fucking what you've been reading.
You see
Section.
fucking Wolverine pull up to the
we need,
mansion,
like, a
knocking on the
reading
door,
rainbow.
going like this.
A reading rainbow image to show up like doo doo doo.
All right, Topher, the floor is yours.
So it's with it being Christmas break, I thought I'd like have all this time so far to like just go on a reading binge and catch up on everything, but that hasn't exactly been the case. Yeah. So really, I haven't read a whole lot. I read some more issues of the latest Nova series leading up to Original Sin. It's been pretty good. And I read, let's see here, there was like a little mini crossover between Guardians of the Galaxy and All New X-Men. It was called The Trial of Jean Grey. That was out earlier this year that I just read. That was pretty neat. Basically, like, the Dark Phoenix saga 30 years ago that Chris Claremont wrote, Jean Grey becomes the Phoenix and goes crazy and flies out into space and blows up a planet and millions of people die and touchdown Packers and then and Claremont didn't write that part, but so she goes on trial by the Shi'ar and that ends up being like the first death of Jean Grey storyline is the Shi'ar attack her and they do this trial by combat thing and she ends up sacrificing herself because she doesn't think she can handle the power of the Phoenix and so now that the young X-Men are back, the Shi'ar find out that young Jean Grey is alive and on Earth so they come down and take her away to stand trial for her crimes. It ends up being a pretty decent story. It was pretty cool. Jean Grey gets some new powers. Looks like she's kind of got like this new, like all pinkish, like complete pure telekinetic energy form that's new. So it looks like they're trying to take them in a slightly different direction than maybe what some of their power sets were back in the day. And in the process, young Cyclops meets Corsair, his father, while they're out in space, and decides he's going to go out into space on some adventures with his dad that he just found out isn't actually dead. And then there's a spin-off series from that. There's a Cyclops has his own solo title right now where it's him and Corsair adventures in space, basically.
You know what would have made that really awesome?
What would happen if Cyclops got pink eye?
I don't know.
What were you saying?
What were you saying, Pirate?
Yeah, sorry.
So you know how you said Packers scored. If you would have been talking about the Shi'at and been like
The Shi'at?
Packers score, like fucking, that would have just sounded so cool. Just roll right in there, or the Shi'art. It just sounded really cool.
Oh man, I just took it.
Ever since you said that, all I kept thinking is like
Brian just Shi'arted.
Yeah.
Brian shards
right
all the time.
into like the football game, like
That'd be my meme.
the fucking Lions scored. Like,
Oh.
I'm sorry, but it kept going through my head every time you kept saying Shi'art.
That was the other thing I read, actually. The little mini series, Long Shot Saves the Marvel Universe.
I thought you were going to say something about sharding.
No, I wasn't actually.
That's what I read.
If it's got anything to do with poop, Brian's read it.
Yeah.
Brian is our resident specialist on poo. That's for sure.
I'm the poop
shit
expert.
in the West or the East.
I could say I know my shit.
Oh,
that was a cheap funny.
that was terrible.
It made me chuckle.
What have you been reading, Brian?
So this week I, because of the holidays, I haven't read that much either, but I read 2 books that came out this week. The first one was Robin Rises. It's the second part in the Return of Damian Wayne. It was pretty good. Basically it starts off directly where the Batman and Robin issue left off. where basically Damien's back, he's resurrected, and then Darkseid's son comes through the portal.
Darkseid has a son.
Yeah, Caliban or something like that.
He's got a couple
Taliban.
sons, doesn't he?
Yeah,
What?
not
What?
Taliban. Caliban.
I don't even know no motherfucking insurgents.
And he comes through, and
Rich.
Damien just beats the shit out of him with the Batmobile and that giant penny that sits in the Batmobile, sits in the Batcave and shit like that. And it's a good action book, and then you see, you know.
Okay, we got some technical difficulties here. It looks like.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Brian just like froze.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool looking.
Next, what? Can you guys hear me?
There we go. He's back now.
Yeah.
We're gonna leave that in too.
Sorry. I was talking,
We'll do
but
it live.
a doo-doo came out of my butt, so I had to pause. No, but you know, it had to. I don't know where you guys last heard me, but it was a pretty good book. I like that they brought Damian Wayne back. I like Damian Wayne and the dynamic of his character, and just like,
He has grown on me.
yeah, I mean, like he started off as like
I
this
didn't.
little kid that wanted to just murder everybody until like he found like
He was a bit of a like a punk, dude. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't say a bitch, but he was like a bitch.
He had something to prove, you know. He like
He did, but it took a few issues to like figure that out. Like out at the gate, you're like, man, this kid's a little fucking like he's not Jason Todd punk, but it's like, man, this kid needs a fucking.
Yeah, he was-
But
he's the
probably
fucking-
Well,
because
his-
he was-
he's the
First
Damon's head
assassin.
grandson.
some of his
Oh,
first
yeah.
adventures. Some of his first adventures were with Nightwing as Batman. You
Yeah.
know? So it's like, this is he's playing sidekick to the son that Bruce Wayne chose. So I mean, I get that he'd have something to prove.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne didn't even know that he had Damian as a son, did he?
Well, he was
No,
kind of
he was
grown
like
in like
9.
a tube.
He didn't, but that doesn't, like,
So, I
if
mean,
you're
you
the
can't
son,
really-
that doesn't mean you can evaluate that,
I mean,
from a
but
completely
you can't
emotional
fault
standpoint.
Batman for like choosing one.
No.
somebody
It
else
wasn't.
over
I'm
him.
not.
He didn't
I'm
know
not
he
saying
fucking
that. But
existed.
as his biological son, you feel like you have something to prove when you're trying to live up to the guy that your dad, like, years ago chose to adopt some guy and made him, basically his successor. So.
I suppose
You don't want to be second to Dick. You don't want to be Dick's number 2.
I still
Nobody
say
wants to be one
the-
step away from a Dick.
I still say the smartest and most clever fucking advertising campaign that DC has ever done was for the Grayson comics when they had the full page ads that just had a picture of him and it just said, "You don't know. You thought you knew, but you don't know Dick."
That was the like
That
the
was
great.
far and
Yeah.
away the most ingenious
over
marketing
last summer, wasn't it?
campaign
July.
ever.
Yeah, pirate knows Dick.
Yeah, he does.
He's intimately familiar.
Damn.
It's my dick, but I'm very close
Whatever
to
you
it,
got to tell
so-
yourself.
It's all about that dick. No vagina.
Fuck.
But the second book I read was. What?
The moment we fucking find out an immature fucking line, do we just automatically attach a song to it? Is that how
Yes.
we work now?
That's it,
That's how it
man.
works.
That's
We're
how
gonna
this,
have to-
that is
we're gonna
exactly
have to
how this
spin-off.
episode's gonna go.
Amazing.
We're gonna have to start a spin-off series that's like Brian's sing-along.
Give me a
Children's songs.
give me a topic and I'll sing a song about it.
Follow the bouncing poo ball.
Yeah, right,
Little
right.
turd
No,
bouncing across the
follow-
lips.
No, it's Follow the Bouncing Dingleberry.
Oh god.
Yeah, fucking little hair with a fucking nugget.
It's just got
Going
one
around.
little hair with a little particle of poo hanging off the end of it.
Little fucking piece of shit ticket stuck still to it. Like fucking bouncing around.
Oh, damn. All right, Brian, continue.
So the second book I read that was really cool this week was the finale of Axis with Marvel, and it was I mean, it wasn't like anything spectacular, but I think it was a good read. It had to do with the inverted heroes just beating the shit out of each other, and finally they get them back to normal, but some significant characters don't get reestablished back into their old personality. Like Sabretooth stays good. Tony Stark stays a douchebag, a giant douchebag, and Havoc also stays a douchebag, which is weird because at the end he kidnaps Wasp, and at the very end you see him going to Scott and joining his little band of underground mutant revolutionaries. And then at the end, it's narrated by Sabretooth writing, like he's writing something on paper, and he's basically, at the end of it, he says like he's trying to live up to Logan's dream, like what Logan was trying to make of himself before he died. So he's basically he's the, I guess, Wolverine in the Marvel Universe, the Wolverine type character, where he's going to try to do good and not butcher people.
Does that mean he's going to have like 37 ongoing series titles in Marvel Comics now?
I think he already has a couple ongoing. There's the book Wolverines. He's going to be in this book, the new Uncanny Avengers #1, which comes out soon, which spirals out of Access. I don't know what else he's in, but I'm sure he'll pop up in the X-Men books or Avengers books.
I mean, if he's anything like Wolverine, he'll have at least 7 titles with his name on it. Otherwise, it's just not even close.
Which kind of like...
He'll die in 2 of them.
Which makes me think of something I could ask all you on the podcast so we could discuss it. Marvel and DC are doing all these changes now to their stories, but both brands are leading up to this giant event where all these universes are colliding with each other, and Marvel might get a reboot, and we don't know what DC is going to do. Are they going to reboot the 52 again or something? I mean, don't you think it's pointless do you guys think it's pointless to do this if they're going to, like, clean slate some stuff with these?
Absolutely.
I think Marvel needs a fucking
they're building up.
They need a clean slate, but these stories that are popping out now and changing these characters and stuff like that, going into these, like, seemingly giant things that are happening.
I think they're testing the waters before a potential reboot, to see, what the readers, what the feedback they get is, what characters are going to pull better numbers in each series, and things like that, to get some sales data built up before they go into a potential reboot. I think personally, my personal opinion, I think Marvel needs a reboot, because you can't hardly fucking follow along with anything. I mean, listen to the shit that Topher talks about. He's trying to fucking keep up with all the Marvel shit. You try to keep up with like one title, and before you know it, that one title is branched out into like 12 different titles. And it's like, if you want to know the story, you got to read all 12 of these fucking titles. And it's impossible to keep up with all this shit.
That's Marvel's money grabbers, man.
The problem has become the fact that they, as a company, they're learning that what sells...
Yeah, it's #1 issues.
Are #1s and crossover events, like event titles and #1s. And so the problem is, and Grant Morrison even, like, came out and said something on Twitter like a week or two ago criticizing this, saying that you rarely get good character moment stories anymore. Instead of like just one title being, like a title being somebody's story and being able to follow that, you have like 30 million crossovers, and it's all about events and reboots and starting this over and like renumbering this, and so you've got to the point where like every single story is this like earth-shattering, status quo changing, whatever, it's like, and nothing will ever be the same, and it's like, why does every single story have to be some big deconstruction of, who the person is? Like, why can't we just have good stories that showcase who they are as characters without having to like bring their whole world crashing down around them with every single story arc? Like 30 years ago, you know, Marvel's best-selling comic was the X-Men, and you had, you know, Claremont and Byrne and Austin doing this amazing run where they never crossed over with other comics. You know, they didn't do they didn't start numbering over again. They had just stories and plot lines that were really good. You had an issue that they'd stop to tell a different kind of story. You know, you had different kind of styles. You had, you know, just things that didn't change the whole world and the whole scape of the Marvel universe, as it were. You just had, you know, people doing things that, you know, heroes would do and seeing how it affected them and just a few individuals related to them. And I feel like now everything has to be so big, and you've got crossovers and number ones that now, like, they're not interested in telling good stories anymore. It seems like they're putting more of an emphasis on sales numbers, and I get that they're a company, they're a business, that's their goal, but it's just frustrating as a
long term. That's going to hurt them, though. Like the thing that the people like you and me and those of us that are probably listening to this podcast that are really interested, the people that are going to be purchasing comic books in the long run for extended periods of time, the things that they want are good stories. They want good ongoing stories, not something where you have 5 issues and then all of a sudden it's a new number 1 or a number 1.5 or a whatever, because they're trying to earn a cheap quick buck.
And you know how much I love the old Claremont X-Men stories, but I've fallen victim to the recent stuff too. Like I went to the comic book store yesterday to get my books from the last 2 weeks because I didn't make it the week before Christmas, and I spent $75 on books for 2 weeks because it was like, oh, there's a there's a new number 1 of this. I'll check this series out. There's Axis crossover. I need issues 8 and 9. Oh wait, there's this Axis Revolution side story. I guess I'll pick that up. And Carnage and Hobgoblin and all these other characters have their own little side event books that are part of this giant crossover. And it's like, before I realize it, I'm buying all these titles just to find out some of these characters are in 7 books at a time, and it's like, if you want, it's so hard to follow a character nowadays. Like, if you're following somebody from the Avengers or the X-Men, you can't follow them without buying 7 different books.
Okay,
and it's really obnoxious.
Here is just a probably not even comprehensive list of the number 1s from 2014, just this year for Marvel. And this is probably not comprehensive. Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, Amazing Spider-Man, Storm, Cyclops, Thor, Moon Knight, Magneto, Nightcrawler, Miracle Man, Silver Surfer, She-Hulk, Secret Avengers, Scarlet Spiders, Figment, Daredevil, Black Widow. It says Captain Marvel again. I don't think that's... And I think that's it. So that's like 20 something. They're literally to the point where they're having number 1 issues almost every week, if not twice a month.
Well,
that's ridiculous.
Half of those were series that they were starting over. Like Secret Avengers was a restart, a numbering restart.
Even so,
some of them were like Silver Surfer hasn't had a book in a long time actually, so that's a new ongoing. So like Storm, Nightcrawler, Silver Surfer, Moon Knight, Spider-Woman, those are all like new number 1s.
I know there's been at least
for
3
a new ongoing, but a lot of them have been restarts too.
I know there's been at least 3 Hulk number 1s this year, just this year. It's why do you justify having 3 number 1 issues within 1 calendar year for 1 character?
Savage Hulk, Hulk versus Thanos. If you count the limited series, what was the other one?
Hulk.
Savage Hulk. Did you say Savage Hulk?
The Hulk series
I feel
rebooted.
Well, that wasn't a new number 1, was it?
Yeah, it was issue number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot they started the numbering over. That was the one right after he got shot, wasn't it?
Yes.
No, that was another one, wasn't it?
No, that was the second one. There was another one where they restarted it right after the Indestructible Hulk, also.
Yeah.
Right.
So it started there. Then they went like 5 or 6 issues, and then they rebooted it and renumbered it from one again. And it's like, why? Like it's so transparent that the only reason that you're doing this is just to saturate the shelves with #1 issues.
Like,
No other
as
reason.
far as and maybe it's working out for him because maybe there are more newcomers who want to buy a bunch of #1s.
I stopped reading
then
Marvel.
maybe there are more
I
newcomer.
pretty much stopped.
Well, my guess is that they're making more money selling #1s to newcomers than they are trying to sell issue 572
I get that.
to collectors.
I get that, but at what
But
point
it
are you
is
gonna
frustrating
stop?
because as a collector, like, I've got these huge runs. Like the first Uncanny X-Men was 544 issues long.
I got the runs too.
It was 544 issues long, and there was something
Yards.
cool about trying to get as many of those as possible, or having read it for, as long as you, or going back and looking at the old issues. Now, like, there's nothing. Why would you want to go back and look at anything? Because they shake everything up and they try and even if it's not a reboot, they try and mix it up with a new creative team, and they tell you don't have to know anything from earlier than this point anyway. So it's like, what's the point of going back, and as a collector, what's the point of going back and looking at these old series? Like, it was getting hard enough to keep track of, like, X-Men this is X-Men volume 3, like now we're on, like, volume fucking 8 of some of these series because they've restarted them so many times.
My point is, like, at some point you're going to run out of, or run low on, new people to try these series out, and you have to go back to having a loyal customer base that wants to continually follow a character. You can't only rely on, okay, well, fuck the motherfuckers that bought this shit last week. We want all new people to buy it this week, so we're going to make another #1. Like, eventually that strategy is going to wear thin, because once somebody's tried it, they may not go back because they keep fucking starting the shit over, and there's no continuity to it. So there's no reason to stay tuned to next week, because next week might not have shit to do with what happened this week.
I was just saying yesterday, as we were leaving the comic book store, I was saying that
Did you guys hold hands?
no. No, I drive a stick shift. I need both hands. No, as we were leaving the comic book store, I was even saying, like, I need, like, I spent $75 in books, for, it was over 2 weeks, but still, I'm like, damn, this hobby is getting way too fucking expensive. Like, there's a lot of series that I genuinely enjoy reading. I like it, but to stay current on them, it's like you have to buy so many books per week. It's like, comics used to be like one a month in a series, and there were two, maybe 3 main titles, and like maybe a solo series of some character. Now it's like there's 4 different characters I like that all have their own solo series that comes out once a month. There are 5 main X-Men titles running per month.
Which is retarded.
There's 4 or 5 different Avengers books that come out on a monthly basis. Some of them are shipping. Some of them are shipping twice a month. And it's like, so that's like, I'm up to almost 20 books per month just from Marvel, just to stay current. It's like, I'm looking at how much money I'm spending, and I even said yesterday, I'm like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And at this point, it's like, if it weren't for this podcast and talking about, even though I'm not really reading the newest stuff anyway currently, but I'm trying to, if it weren't for this podcast and trying to stay current on things, I would probably not be buying comics anymore, and I'd probably be sitting there with my Marvel Unlimited app, just content to read everything when it comes out 6 months later, and not have to pay any more above my whatever yearly subscription cost.
I agree, and I think part of that is due to the fact that the cinematic releases, the movies, have been so popular, and it's brought such a spotlight on comic book culture and nerd culture as a whole, that now the market is kind of getting oversaturated with these titles, to where it's not as simple to follow one character or one group of characters like it was before. Like you said, there used to be, one X-Men title, and once a month you got to read that book, and you might have one other book that you get. It's just not like that. Like, even you look at the Batman universe. It's the same on the other side of the fence too. It's the same for DC. It's not just Marvel. Look at, how many Batman titles do you have now? You have Detective Comics, you have Batman, you have Batman Eternal, you have Arkham
Manor,
Arkham
Arkham
that,
Academy,
Gotham this, Gotham that. there's like fucking 8 of them.
Gotham by Midnight now.
Right.
You've got there's obviously a huge boom of it's like baby boomers here. We've got Marvel boomers with like the popularity of the movies. All these people suddenly rushing in and buying all this stuff. I wonder if that I wonder how long that'll keep up, and if at some point they realize that they need to hold on to readers more than than they're making money from attracting new ones. I don't know. But
the moral of the story is...
The other problem is when you're releasing that many titles per month, it's really hard for authors to stay on top of continuity. Like, I was reading towards the end of last year, like all the different Wolverine series. There was Savage Wolverine, there was Wolverine solo series. He was in his own X-Men title. He was making appearances in a couple other X-Men titles. He was on 3 different Avengers teams, and it's like they were telling the story of when he was losing his healing factor. And then you'd go and you'd read another book 2 months later in another title, and he's still like, out there healing like a champ. And it's like, nobody can stay on the same page. Like, nobody can write like, they keep trying to do all these crossovers that are like earth-shattering and world-changing. But how much can you really change a character when you go and you read a different book the next week from a different title, and the things from the other one aren't even in there? It's like these characters aren't ever really changing if the editors can't even keep straight what's happening to the characters in 7 different books at a time.
Right.
I think he made Pirate cry.
Yeah,
he was like this
Pirate was basically sleeping through most of that.
I stopped listening when he said Grant Morrison doesn't know how to rap, or stopped listening when he said Grant Morrison was bitching about somebody not being able to wrap things up in a series.
All the major characters.
I don't even know what he's talking about now. Like,
all the major characters have at least like 5 titles.
The moral of the story is, if there's anybody out there that wants to sponsor us and throw us some fucking free comic books to read, hit us up, because we'll read them. Because we're all a bunch of broke dudes.
Anything to do with the moral of that story?
I'm just saying.
I think we're pretty much hit our fucking Marvel limit for this episode. So
we were talking about DC and all kinds of shit, motherfucker. You were sleeping, napping.
I was like, this is going nowhere.
It's the Hennessy.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay.
All right, well, I think that was probably our longest What You've Been Reading segment ever.
And it was Topher's.
No, it was off of Brian's.
No, it was me. It was off of me.
It was all spun off of Brian's.
I didn't know because Topher was the one who talking.
Topher and I started talking, and then it just shit spiraled out of
Mindless
control.
filler.
Yeah, right? Yeah, no shit. Which is a good thing that we had some of that mindless filler, because now we're on to the news section, and there ain't shit happening in the comic book world. I think Topher said something about something to do with Magneto or something.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, I don't know if Brian mentioned it because I was trying not to listen too much about what happened in the latest Axis because I haven't read it yet. But there was a point where Scarlet Witch is like casting a spell, and it's supposed to affect all the members of Magneto's bloodline, and it leaves her and Quicksilver unscathed. And she makes some comment, and calls him father in quotes, and it looks like Marvel's doing some play here where they're trying to make it so that Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are no longer Magneto's children, completely fucking with 30 years of continuity, presumably to make it more understandable to new readers who are coming in from the movies who are going to see the upcoming Avengers 2 Age of Ultron and
fucking over their loyal comic book
fans. Yeah, and see a different origin for them that doesn't have them being mutants, and doesn't link them at all in any way to Magneto. even though Fox and Marvel have joint rights to those characters, and in the Fox movies,
Fox?
they are showing
That's
them,
right.
and they are showing them, and they are Magneto's children in that one. So it's like it just seems like another fuck you to Fox, and another like we don't really give a shit about mutants
Fuck you,
because
Fox.
we're trying
Fuck
to
me.
sell our own shit, and it seems to be once again another play of how can we make more money and get new readers in here rather than
How can we make quality content?
honoring the actual quality of the stories that we've been telling for the last 30 years.
Hey, that ass over there, I'm gonna fuck it. That's what they're saying.
Damn.
I wonder if they're gonna even change the fact that they're mutants in the comics and suddenly make them Inhumans now.
Well,
Probably.
it's even worse.
I even read something like that.
It's even worse than what Chris said, because what happens is Scarlet Witch casts that spell that Chris was talking about. Quicksilver collapses, and nothing happens to Magneto. So they didn't explore it further, but they give you the notion that Magneto was never their father to begin with, and Scarlet Witch just fucked her situation up by separating her from Quicksilver. So now they're saying that Magneto was never their father, which again goes to the point I was making with that whole discussion, is why the fuck are they doing this shit when they only have a few months until everything just blows up? I mean,
Because why
like,
not? It's all going to be
Magneto, yeah,
they get a
Magneto,
do-over soon.
the whole dynamic of their lives, you go to House of M, which basically revolved around Scarlet Witch, Magneto, and Quicksilver, because they were the main antagonists, and just said, oh yeah, Magneto was never your father for how many years, and now Quicksilver's not your brother because you did that. I mean, like, stuff like that, like, who cares? Why are you doing that?
It's dumb, and like it changes a lot of dynamics, because you look at like the Uncanny Avengers roster that they started out with after AVX, when they're like, oh, we want to make mutants matter to to Captain America and to the rest of the world too, and so you start off the roster with 3 Avengers and then 3 mutants, except one of them is Wolverine, who would always choose sides with the Avengers anyway and had been an Avenger. Havoc, who was never really a main X-Man to begin with, and was kind of on the team only because they wanted it to look better for his brother being Cyclops and going batshit crazy with the Phoenix. And then you've got Scarlet Witch, who's supposed to be the other mutant on the team, and she was always more of an Avenger anyway. She was never really a true X-Man, and now they might even be taking your mutant status away. And it's like, why are we fucking with all this stuff? Like, there's always been this, the X-Men comics have played a lot off of the fact that, like, every time they'd see Wanda and the Avengers, they'd be doing some press conference, like, they'd always say, like, look how they cheer her as a hero and all this stuff. Like, you're mutants are bad guys until one of them's an Avenger, and then suddenly they're a good guy. Like, why doesn't that extend to the rest of our powers? And like, they're throwing away so many dynamics that have done so much story-wise for them over the last several decades. I don't get it.
It's too confusing for the new readers.
I agree.
Yeah, and because it's
Well, it'll probably be easy for new readers, because if they fucking just start everything at number 1
Every week.
right in. Yeah. Like, oh.
I mean,
They might as well just turn them all into fucking glorified comic strips.
There's stuff that's
books.
different.
Let's just have
There's stuff that's
strips.
different in the comics anyway, though. Like, I don't know why they have to make everything so much like the movies, because they're leaving so much other stuff untouched. Like, right now, Tony Stark has got the white armor, the superior thing, and he's moving to San Francisco, and you've got Thor, who is now a female, and you've got Captain America, who's now a little old man, and it's Falcon as Captain America. So, like, anybody watching the movies coming to the comics right now, they're already going to be confused as fuck, or they're going to understand, oh, hey, the comics and the movies aren't the same. So I don't know why you try to make more things like the movies, because then that just blurs the line even more. It's like, okay, if you're trying to make it like the movies, then either make them all like the movies or stop fucking with things.
but I think they like to see the experiment of like saying, hey, what if the next Captain America 3 is, Falcon as a fucking captain and Captain's a frail old man, and then let's see how those comic book sales, if they sell
Fuck that! If they don't make Bucky Captain
I'm just
America
saying.
in the comics, I know what you're saying because that's been a theory.
So-
If they don't make Bucky Cap in the comics first, I will literally
You
just
mean
shit
in the
my
movies?
pants. Yeah, what'd I say?
You said in the comics.
It's a comic.
They
In the
already did
movies.
that.
He's been in the comic.
Shit! I just got here from the past.
Damn it! Spoilers! Spoilers, motherfucker!
But if don't do that. Don't go and do that.
Well, I'm
Why-
just, you know what I
Bucky.
mean, though. Like, it's not like that's the exact example I'm going to say that's going to happen. I'm just saying
Because then
that's how they tread the waters. You know what I mean? Like, let's just see how. Let's see Brian's reaction. to
Did we
this.
just straight found the line in the sand that Brian draws? Like that is where he no longer takes
Fuck that.
fuck that shit.
But like as Chris was saying, the movie shit. I mean, back when Iron Man 1 came out, they changed his Iron Man's origin from Vietnam to Afghanistan in the comics.
Right.
I think they was about
they've-
20 years behind on that one.
Yeah,
I think
they've
that
been
was
doing-
probably a good call.
They've been doing that for a long time, though. That wasn't just because of the movies. I mean, like making Jarvis his, the name of his AI and his armor. They changed for the comic. Like there's been a lot of, and they've made him way more like Robert Downey Jr. But the whole refreshing origin stories to take place, later on. I mean, that's kind of been a part of Marvel's rolling continuity for a long time now. Even before the movies, they were making, like the Fantastic Four. Ben
Grimm.
Ben Grimm and Reed Richards had served together in Vietnam, I think it was, and the Punishers, and it was originally Vietnam. And then years later, they kind of redid a new origin story for them that had them in Iraq for Operation Desert Storm. So I mean, like they've kind of refreshed the origin stories a lot. So I don't know
I
that
think
you
shit
can
like
chalk that one
is
up to the
good
movies,
because
but
that's very subtle. You can do that very subtle without changing the character.
So
You could do that. Like all you have to do is instead of at some point implement flashbacks instead of being Vietnam era.
Right, and they've done that multiple times, and I'm fine with that because it keeps the timelines fresher. It makes more sense.
It keeps people relative to the story, like some sort of attachment, like they can connect with it more. Like
But suddenly making
if I read a Vietnam fucking era, I'm thinking my dad. If you know what I mean, like a kid
So
reading
wait a
an
minute.
account might think of Iraq.
So in like 15 years, does that mean like Ben Grimm, Reed Richards, and the Punisher are going to get new era origin stories about like Operation Obamacare or something? Is that going to be the next generation of?
They're gonna protect America from North Korea shutting down their movies.
that wasn't exactly a war, but no, I mean, like, yeah, pretty much though. That's what they do. They'll probably pick a later war. I mean, like, it's. I know this seems like a cop out by a fanboy, but it's best not to think about it too much when you're talking about the timelines. See, but I like that though because. Like DC took the other route. DC said, screw this. Instead of having them, instead of trying to have these moving timelines where everything always just happened, kind of like 10 to 15 years ago, no matter what time, what the current year is and publication time. Like DC was like, fuck it, none of it happened. We're gonna start them all over. And I personally didn't care for the whole reboot
But see,
thing.
DC
Well,
has
fuck
never
you.
been one to be in real life like scenarios. Like I don't think I've ever read anything in DC where it talks about the Vietnam War, talks about Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Operation Enduring Freedom, none of that, because they have this,
Operation Dirk of Freedom. Did you just say that?
I think he just said
Enduring freedom.
Yeah,
Dark
it's-
and yeah.
Anyway, no, I've never seen anything in that, and I think DC. That's what I like about DC. DC comics are very location oriented, like Metropolis, Central City. It's not like Gotham. It's not like you can relate to where they're at and think where they're at, but there's no real place on a map.
It's almost a fictitious universe, so they can tell their stories in their own time because they don't rely on real world events.
Right.
Exactly. And Marvel doesn't do that. Marvel, everything's in New York City, pretty much.
I heard somebody say once, a quote from somebody, that DC characters are more like gods and Marvel characters are more like, regular people. You could whatchamacallit off of them. Like, I forgot what I was thinking.
Yeah, that was a fucking.
I mean,
like you could relate to them. That's what I was looking for.
Damn. Straight losing his train of thought. Just straight like had a full head of steam and then just put the fucking air brakes on.
It's hard for me to talk about something without saying poop.
So
I believe it. Judging on your Facebook posts, I fucking believe that. I fully believe that.
That being said, I really don't think that Marvel is going to reboot their universe with Secret Wars. I think the point of it is
a cheap marketing ploy.
Well, one, it's to have a crossover event so that they can sell a bunch of books. Two, it's so that they can then relaunch titles after that, after everything gets shaken up with a bunch of new number ones, therefore selling more books. And three, their Ultimate Universe line has been faltering for a number of years now, and there's really only one good character to come out of it, and it was Miles Morales, Ultimate Spider-Man. And they're wanting to bring him into the fold and make him, somebody in the main Marvel universe, so that they can tell stories with him in crossovers, and people will buy more books too.
Isn't he rumored to have a movie?
I don't know. I haven't heard that, but it seems to me that they're not gonna do a reboot. It's gonna be another mix-up, like after AVX, where there's kind of a new status quo for everybody, and I think they also want to kind of destroy the multiverse. It's like Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they want to say, okay, all these other timelines and universes, like we're done doing some of that, and some of these characters that we like from these other universes, we're going to bring them into the main Marvel universe. And so I think they're trying to consolidate their alternate universe characters into the same universe and do away with a lot of all these side things that people weren't buying, and start telling more crossover stories that actually will sell in the main titles that also use these characters from other universes that people like.
Now, do you think
they're going to stick a number one on the
That's what I
cover?
think. They're going to be like 1,200 number ones. 5 of those, like
all for $6 an issue.
Yeah, and half of those will be about Wolverine who's not alive.
Yeah.
And then the variant covers that are all going to be out. The 4 variant covers for each one.
The only thing I'm excited about coming from, like, I'm a huge Marvel fan because my favorite character is Spider-Man and shit like that. Except I don't like Marvel right now. But the only thing I'm excited about Marvel putting out is the new Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Speaking of variant covers, there's like 35
30.
different covers.
Are you
for this.
fucking kidding me?
Yeah,
What is the point of that? What's the point?
That's $4 a motherfucking issue, dog. That's what that is.
What is the fucking point of that? Even from a collector's standpoint, why would anyone, even if you are an avid Star Wars collector, go out and buy 35 different variants?
It isn't about the buyer. It's about the seller. It's about the fucking comic stores that are able to pre-sell however many copies to get that limited run one variant that fucking they can't, that the shop's probably going to end up having.
Stupid.
And then you're bordering on Megatron there now, but no one's trying to like collect. I don't think the goal is for somebody to collect all 35 variant covers. If you look at some of the covers, like there's a lot of them are store variants. So like Midtown Comics in Manhattan, they're like Lone Star Comics in Texas or something. Like a lot of these shops are getting their own variants that like by pre-selling enough, or it's more like a launch party. It's more like, hey, we're celebrating the fact that we've got Star Wars license back. We're doing these. Like, I don't think the goal is to, like, it's not a bunch of interlocking covers that you have to buy them all. They're just saying, hey, look, we're celebrating this. Like Joe Quesada drew one, and there's like an uncolored sketch variant, of his, and it's going to be like a 1 for 250 variant or something, so like a store has to order 250 copies of the regular one to even get one of these, so it's not like there's going to be a ton of them. They're not trying to sell, like get people to, I don't know, like I think you're blowing that out of proportion. I think it's more of just a celebration of the fact that,
I just think that
it's like a launch party thing.
I just don't like the whole variant cover thing, to be honest with you. Like, I'm just not.
I like the variant cover, but I'm
not a big fan of
necessary.
I'm not a big fan of the whole variant cover situation at all. Like, I would prefer that they put the effort into making, like, if you want to make an awesome ass cover for a book, put it on the book. Make that an iconic book with a great story on the inside and a really really memorable front cover, an iconic front cover. Like, you look behind me, you see the Infinity Gauntlet cover. That's a really iconic cover by George Perez. Make that, I think that would have cheapened that cover if there would have been 17 different variants of that fucking cover. Then that cover wouldn't be as memorable because you got 17 other motherfuckers running around that are less popular, pulling away the iconic, memories of that individual image. There's so many books out there that you can think of that when you think back over the history of comics, there's so many covers that you might remember just the cover. You might not even remember exactly what the story is that's inside the book, but that iconic cover is what you remember, and I feel like you're taken away from that.
The reason why you think it's an iconic cover is because you feel that it's an iconic cover that relates to that story, but art is subjective. And I've seen a lot of variants that I'm like, man, I wish they would have went with this cover because it's so much fucking better. It appeals to me more than the actual one that does. But, I mean, it's like I said, it's completely opinion-based, and I think that's why they do it, and they do it to kind of go across the... Hold on, my dog's fucking chewing.
No, I agree with Fox that there are iconic covers, and like you can
X-Men,
see a cover and
giant size X-Men #1 being a perfect example.
Yeah,
if
but
there was
I don't
six
think
covers for that, it wouldn't be. Might not know that cover. That cover wouldn't be what it is today if there was 6 versions of that.
There's
cover.
always going to be.
But
cover.
But I disagree with you on the fact that I don't think having a variant of it cheapens that. Like, variants are a fun way. Like, sure, you can call it a money grab, but it's a fun way to say, hey, like, this issue is important, we're doing some other things. It's a different take. It's like, yeah, we're going to relate this story to another character. We're going to put, like, Deadpool on this cover. Like, I think it's a way of celebrating, like, a launch party for a particular big issue that you want to call attention to by saying, here, we're going to have, a few different alternate covers, and let other artists do
I get that, but
like,
at the same time, they're not just doing that. They're, like, look at AVX. They had fucking, like, 6 different covers for every single issue.
Yeah.
Every issue.
What I like with a lot of variants, and what I like when they do with certain variants, I like to see comical renditions of the actual real cover.
Like,
I like to see artists take their like, their own run with it, and you end up coming up with some type of like there was a Punisher one that I got. I think it was when they rebooted Punisher last year. There was one where he was like, it was like a teddy bear type suit. It puts a different spin on something.
The Scotty Young covers. If you're not familiar, he does the little kids doing something.
Fun.
Yeah, they're fun. I like the Alex Ross covers, but they're usually like fucking $200.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it just puts a different perspective onto a book that wouldn't normally need that type of cover. Because it's one of those books, like, I look at it like it's one of those books, regardless of the cover, you're going to read it. You know what I mean? Most likely, like with the Punisher one, I bought all the variants because there was like three or four of them.
I mean, look at like Original Sin.
Count the blank.
Original Sin. Variant covers for every single issue. And that was a shit story.
What?
There's nothing good about that series.
I'm just saying the take on the cover is what we're talking about.
The point The point is not to collect them all, though. The point is to have options for people, or fans of a particular artist. Like J. Scott Campbell does a ton of variant covers, and some people really like his art style,
Doug Wheatley does amazing.
and they'll buy it because they want to see a different artist's take on what the cover of that issue should be. And I don't see a problem with that. I don't know why. I really don't get having a problem with that. Like, if you don't want it, don't buy it. It has this. They're called variants for a reason. It's not like they're options. It's not like option A and option B on the cover. There's the standard
the collectability for the regular issues.
No, it doesn't, because there's the cover. There is the cover for an issue, and then there are variants. It's not like you have your choice of 5 covers to cheapen the value. There is the cover, and then there are variants that are optional covers. Like, nobody says you have to buy all of them. And you pointed out, an iconic X-Men cover. Go back to the #1 selling comic book of all time up until somewhat recently, I think, was X-Men #1, from Jim Lee era, 1991. It was a set of 5 covers. There were 4 interlocking ones where it was like, played out this giant panorama of the 2 X-Men teams battling Magneto, and like to this day it's still a very iconic cover, even though there were technically 4 covers, and I actually do own all 4 of them, and I still think it's cool to this day. So I mean, like, I don't get the backlash against variants. You don't like them, don't buy them.
I think it lowers the collectability of the original cover, because it lowers the value in every instance. The
Why?
variant covers
How?
are.
Yeah,
I don't know why or how. That's my problem with it. But the point is,
I'm disagreeing, but I'm saying it doesn't.
Look, yes, it does. It does. It's a fucking.
How?
It's a fact.
Covers-wise, I don't
How?
think original covers are worth anything anymore.
The fucking like Original Sin. Look at Original Sin #1. The Original Sin #1 book is worth nothing. It's probably not even worth cover price.
Okay.
The fucking variant cover for Original Sin, where it fades from black and gray to color, is selling for like $30.
And how does that devalue the original? It's because it's more rare. There weren't as many of them produced, which means it's worth more.
Yeah, that
but
story
if you didn't print that one, it's not like the regular cover would be worth $30. So I don't know where you're getting this. Like, you can say all you want that it devalues the standard, but I don't think that it does. You have no data. Like, yes, the variants are worth more because there's fewer of them.
Because that's
more rare.
Okay. But that's like saying second, third, fourth prints lower the price of the first print.
Yeah, just because the standard cover isn't worth as much as a particular variant that had a much lower run doesn't mean the existence of the variant devalued the standard, and that the standard cover would be worth a lot more if there were no variants.
It drives the collectors to want to collect those variants versus the regular. In turn, lowering the demand for the original cover.
I disagree, because
the limited availability wants people to buy it.
Yeah, it's the availability that determines it.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
As a collector,
no, because if somebody wants to collect a fucking shit story 1, and that there's plenty copies of, if they say, okay, it's a shit story, but this is a limit. When you collected baseball cards, did you collect baseball cards just because Topps didn't release, like, there was less amounts of a card that you wanted? I remember I had a fucking gold Nigel Robertson fucking rookie card. Who the fuck is Nigel Robertson? It was worth money because there wasn't that many. That's how it works, dude. Like,
as a collector, I would rather have the standard covers anyway. Like, to me, it's not, the variants are nice, but they're not the actual cover. They don't count. So if I'm going to collect something and you're saying it devalues them to collectors, I'm saying, as someone who wants to collect a series, I want the standard cover of everything. The variants might be nice to have on top of that, but their value is not because they're different and because, people want them more and they're valued more highly than the standard ones. It's simply a question of availability. The runs on them, there's only like, 1 for every 50 of the main cover that's printed, and that's why they're priced higher, because they're more rare. I still don't think it devalues the standard cover.
I don't know. I mean, that's the beauty of opinions. We can all have our own, but I disagree personally. But that's it's whatever. So anyway, I think we are about out of time today. We will be back next Wednesday, noon. Check out our Facebook page, Comic Book Nerd Nation. We've been getting a lot of likes lately. Not sure why, but we've been picking up numbers pretty quickly.
Motherfuckers like us.
I like that. I'm not sure why.
I don't know. We didn't sound like we did anything different.
We tend to just argue a lot, so
Yeah.
I don't know why anybody wants to hear that kind of shit.
So
Pirate posted a new pic.
yeah,
Where did Brian
passed out
go?
on the floor.
I don't know. Motherfuckers passed out or something. All right, I'm Fox 2. We got Pirate,
I see you guys.
Topher,
Who day?
and the whole effing Brian. Who there?
Bye.
That made me jump a little.